Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever and wherever you're listening. Welcome to Way Outta Here, the Phillies sports podcast with fan perspective from way outside the greater Philadelphia area. My name is Steve Prudente, here with you as always to take you on the journey for the next half hour or so, coming to you on a Friday morning, about a week or so after both Philly sports teams, winter sports teams, the Sixers and the Flyers, were swept out of the second round series. We'll talk a lot about that, plus looking forward to the Phillies in Pittsburgh this weekend. I'll be at a couple of those games, but before I get into all that, I'd like to remind you to subscribe to me on the social media platform of your choice. Facebook and Instagram, Way Outta Here Podcast, on Blue Sky, Way Outta Here Pod, on the blog, WayOuttaHerePodcast.blogspot.com, and if you've got any feedback, you can send an email to WayOuttaHerePodcast@gmail.com. I'm available just about wherever you get your podcasts. On Apple and Spotify, a rating would be great. On Apple, a review would be even greater. Thank you so much in advance. I will begin, as always, with the beer of the show. Today's selection I have picked is Fellow by Forest and Main Brewing Company, and I will have more on that at the end of the show. So, as I mentioned off the top, both the Sixers and Flyers were swept out of the second round. That's going to be the primary topic today, because despite the defeats, I think that both teams experienced a little bit of redemption. So I'll call this one Remember the Redemption, because yes, even in defeat, there were some positives to take from it. Certainly more on one side of the table than the other, but I want to focus a little bit more on the positive sides of things here, because being a sports fan, as I talked about several episodes ago, is tough. It's rare that your team is actually going to win percentage-wise, but we are noticing some things, especially on the Flyers side of things, that we can take some positives from and look forward. So yes, both teams were defeated in the second round, swept out of the series by the New York Knicks and the Carolina Hurricanes, respectively. The schedule makers didn't really do either team any favors. There was a lack of rest between the series. Now, I get it. It's the playoffs. You're expecting that it's going to be an arduous task to begin with to win 4 series. But especially from the Flyers side of things, they found out less than 48 hours before they were playing the Carolina Hurricanes that they were going to be starting on a Saturday evening. And they had just defeated the Pittsburgh Penguins on a Wednesday night. So Thursday, I guess they were at practice, and they found out that in 2 days they were going to be playing. I think the reasoning behind it was primarily for TV purposes. The NHL did not want to give up a primetime slot on a Saturday evening, and so they bumped up the start of the Flyers series to before they had even finished the other Eastern Conference quarterfinal series between, I guess it was the Montreal Canadiens and the Tampa Bay Lightning were still playing, and they still had one game to go. So the Flyers started their series early, and the Sixers as well were, I think, only had 2 days off between their first round win over the Boston Celtics and the New York Knicks. Getting right back to it. So, I mean, as I said, I understand it's the playoffs. It's supposed to be difficult, but I have seen them in the past give teams at least a couple of days to kind of regroup and get a couple of their guys that might be a little banged up some rest. But be that as it may, whatever the case is, we had to trudge on there. So I'll start with the Flyers. As mentioned, because of that lack of rest and because they're going up against a much more formidable opponent, they were completely outmatched in Game 1. And we did get the sense in the first couple of periods of that game that it might be a very short series. So they did get better, though, as the game went on, and looked like they could show some promise going into the next game. They very well could have won the second game. Their chances were there. They took the Carolina Hurricanes to overtime, actually got a lead in the series. That's the first time the Hurricanes had trailed all playoffs and through five games. So lots of good things to take from there, and there was sure a lot of optimism from my end that this team could at least pull out one win in this series. Now, Travis Konechny had a great opportunity in overtime, didn't cash in. He blamed himself and took accountability for it, but on the replay, it did look like goalie Freddie Anderson did get a piece of it, so I won't put all of it on TK. Just one of several chances that the Flyers had that game to take it and didn't. They came home to Game 3. A raucous Philadelphia crowd showed up and did what we expect them to do. And realistically, they could have been up 3-0 in that first period of Game 3 at home, but they did unfortunately give up a goal. That's just the way the bounces have worked for the Flyers, for the most part in these playoffs, other than the first 3 games of the Pittsburgh series. But still, we're only down 1 goal as they headed into the third period. They were tied 1-1 for a while, and then in the third period they gave up a shorthanded goal that really deflated the team. And that's when Carolina really started to really take over in the third period. They end up winning that one 4-1. I loved in Game 4, even though the Flyers did end up losing, they started out on top. They fought to get back to a tie at the end of the game in the third period after going down 2-1. And then just a heartbreaking goal for goalie Dan Vladar, who was the MVP of the team this year, and certainly one of the biggest reasons why the Flyers were even in the second round of the playoffs. For him to give up the goal that he gave up, and he has said since that no one takes it harder than him. And, I feel terrible for the guy because he absolutely played his ass off these playoffs and this season, and for sure he's going to use that as motivation going forward. That's the thing that's really kind of unsettling about the sweep is, yes, I never expected the Flyers to realistically win, but I never questioned their effort. I do think that this was truly a case of a young team being overmatched, and we're done absolutely zero favors by health and that inexperience. The special teams, of course, ultimately doomed the series. You get so many power play chances and other good looks to try to get something on the board versus a very, very talented Carolina Hurricanes team, but the special teams could not cash in, and that is really ultimately what I think doomed the Flyers this series. Of course, like I said, injuries. Missed Owen Tippett a lot. He was so fast in that Pittsburgh series, and then we found out that he was playing through a sports hernia and internal bleeding because of it. So good Lord, tough guy to even get out there and attempt to play. He was still questionable. He might have actually tried to return these playoffs had the Flyers been able to keep it going versus the Hurricanes. Noah Cates had a foot injury that kept him out of the remainder of the playoffs, basically. He broke his foot blocking a shot versus the Hurricanes. Cam York had some broken ribs, if you can believe that. And Christian Dvorak had a separated shoulder, among other things. I mean, and that's just a start on this injury list of a lot of things that guys were going through. So ultimately, you can't blame injuries totally because good teams find a way to persevere and get through it, but they certainly weren't helped by that. There was also a lot of discourse because Rick Tocchet benched Matvei Michkov again in Game 4, and I'm not really that concerned about it. A lot of people were really upset about this, but let's look at this in the big picture. The guy was not good this series. He played very well down the stretch of the regular season, but when it came to playoff hockey, the pace is completely different, and he did look like he was a little bit overwhelmed. So I would just like to put out there STFU to all the Negadelphians and the sports radio guys that are out there trying to get people all riled up about it. I think he deserved to be benched. Was it just to get Jetlachenko in there? I don't think that that's what the coaching staff was really thinking, but I can understand why Rick Tocchet did it, and I do think it was kind of deserved. That's really the only questionable negative that I have to take from this series and from this season overall is that he went through some struggles this year, and he's still a young player. There's plenty of time for him to butt into that superstar. I really hope the Flyers do not act rashly, and I don't think they will. Danny Briere and Keith Jones have done a tremendous job building this team and getting them to this point. I'm going to take nothing but positives from this season overall. I mean, making the playoffs, every team has a goal to make the playoffs and win the Stanley Cup, but realistically, can they all do it? Of course not. But this team, as I said before the season, I thought realistically they could be a bubble playoff team, and they were. They just got in on the last couple days of the season, and then they, on top of that, winning a playoff round against your biggest rival is just gravy on top. So I will take nothing but positives from this season. We're looking forward to a productive offseason with a lot of promise. The Toronto Maple Leafs won the draft lottery, which helps our future draft pick stock, and the salary cap is going up too. So could we see some sort of a big splash this free agency? Time will tell. I don't think that they're going to go absolutely crazy and throw a boatload of money at somebody. I'm not even sure who's really out there, but I do expect them to be pretty active. I just overall feel so much better about this team. We are back, folks. This run felt a little bit to me like the 2022 Phillies when we finally got back into the playoffs. That was an 11-year drought, so this was only 5. But it felt a little bit like the 2022 Phils. We had forgotten for quite a long time what it felt like to have that kind of an atmosphere and that magical feeling that we're finally heading in the right direction. And we are there, folks. It is an exciting time to be a Flyers fan. I know that losing sucks, but I really hope that all of you out there will take a lot of positives from this. I'm really excited to see what the next steps are going to be. Now we will flip the page here to the Sixers, who gave us so much positivity again after that round 1 comeback versus the Celtics, winning in Game 7, a tremendous moment for Joel Embiid and his career finally getting off the schneid with the Boston Celtics. The Flyers, as of course, like I said, got redemption versus the Pittsburgh Penguins. They had tormented us for, 20-something years, then finally got over the hump there. The Sixers finally got over the hump versus the Boston Celtics. It had been 40-some years, 1982, so 44 years since they had beaten the Celtics in the playoffs. And you finally get that monkey off your back. And I kind of expected there to be a little bit of a letdown going into the Knicks series just because of how emotional that was. Very similar timelines here with both of these teams. That you come off that emotional win, and granted, the New York Knicks are one of our heated rivals. Maybe you could even argue that they're our most hated rival. I still think the Celtics are above there for me, but you could make your own case on that. Anyway, so we did get blown out in Game 1, as kind of expected. They came out a little flat. Game 2 was much closer. The Sixers played much better. No Joel Embiid. He was ruled out hours before the game due to hip and knee issues, I believe. And the Sixers actually were playing well in his absence, but then gave up the lead in the end. And really, I did feel like they had a chance to steal one in New York that they didn't cash in on, but I still wasn't too worried about it because, again, I really didn't expect the Sixers to beat the Knicks. But they did squander an opportunity to get one over in Game 2. Came home to Game 3 in Philadelphia. You expect that you're going to get that home court advantage just with the fans backing you a little bit better. And they came out strong, had an early lead, and then they gave it up in the middle way through the second quarter, and it always just felt like they were one step behind. Now, another caveat I wanted to throw in this game, and this is a real gripe I have with sports media in general, but especially the NBA right now, was that the game was on Prime, and I do not have Prime Video. I am not going to subscribe just to watch basketball games. I think that it's ridiculous that we have to have 18 different streaming services just to follow our teams. Especially, we're in the playoffs, guys. Why is this not on national TV? Good God. So at any rate, but I listen to the radio. I do like listening to the Sixers on the radio from time to time, and I was following that way. I was, just doing some stuff around my house, and it really did feel just like that entire rest of the game after the middle-way point of the second quarter that the Sixers could not catch up. It would seem like they'd go on a run, but at the same time, the Knicks would just keep pace and be one step ahead of them. I did get wind during this game that there was one disrespectful Knicks fan during the moment of silence for Nick Nurse's brother, Steve Nurse, who passed away tragically at a young age, that a disrespectful Knicks fan apparently yelled out, "Go Knicks," during a moment of silence. Now, I did get wind of that and don't love to see or hear that. And, I know that doesn't speak to every person in the fan base. There are idiots everywhere, just like we have in Philadelphia. But it reminded me a little bit, this is way worse, of course, but it reminded me a little bit of when, the Washington Capitals and the Baltimore Orioles, and I guess now even the Vegas Golden Knights and certain other teams, because there happens to be a word in the national anthem that resembles their team or their color or whatever. They shout it out during the anthem. I just think it's ridiculous. It's stupid. And it reminded me of that, but worse. Anybody who does that, I'm sorry, you get no respect from me. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. The Phillies could yell out red, but we don't. We don't do that. I guess the Sixers could too. Red's in our color scheme, but we don't. And if there's a moment of silence, don't be a dick. Be respectful. At any rate, so Game 4, we're down 0-3, And I got home halfway through the first quarter, turned it on, I got the alert on my phone, and the game was already pretty much over. And I was like, you know what? I guess at the very least, I was like, okay, don't drag me along and then give up a last second 3-pointer at the buzzer to rip my heart out at the end of the game. At the very least, I could kind of watch it worry-free, so to speak. Now, it did suck. I did kind of check out towards the end. I just had it on in the background as I was doing some other things. But it just was unfortunate to see that, because we kind of knew it was coming too, based on comments that some of the players had made and the vibes surrounding the team, that Knicks fans were going to come into the Xfinity Mobile Arena and take over, and they did. I don't love to see it, but I also kind of expected it, because when you look at the bigger picture of this team, I don't think that this atmosphere that we have around this team is the way it is because of the players. I mean, ultimately, the players got to play, and they have to be the ones that execute on the plays. Coaching, I mean, the coaching wasn't that great, but it wasn't the worst thing. It just really did look like the Sixers were gassed. The effort was clearly there, but they had completely run out of energy, especially with like Tyrese Maxey. I will get to the overriding thing that I think is causing what this issue is, because there was no clear player that you could scapegoat in these playoffs this time, and that's why it's really kind of a weird feeling, because like, let's go, maybe Embiid or Maxey being injured could be part of the reason why the Sixers just couldn't come out and get even one win. I'm not blaming injuries on the whole thing, though. There was just clearly, they looked like they were out of energy, they were gassed, and the vibe just had lost its luster after that Celtics emotional win. But you go back to 2020. Ben Simmons was injured. They had built the whole defense around him, and in those bubble playoffs, you could kind of see that the team just didn't have any answers for the Boston Celtics. And then in 2021, Ben Simmons again, but this was the pass, and infamously giving it up when he had a chance to just slam dunk it home, and you could see that he was just going through it and not right. So we ended up moving him out of town. 22 and 23. You could put mostly on James Harden for not showing up in the playoffs, and his track record there until this year was not great in the playoffs. You could kind of put it mostly on him. 2024, 100% on Tobias Harris. He was awful for the money that we paid him, and now, of course, he's lighting it up in Detroit. You know, it just happens so much to us as Sixers fans. But this time around, no one really could be one player that I would pin the series on. It looked like they were all trying their hardest. They just had nothing left in the tank. This ultimately falls on the organization once again. Jared McCain, who we shipped out at the trade deadline, I didn't love the move at the time. I hate it even more now. Would have been really nice to have him and what he's been doing in Oklahoma City on there. No? And now we're left with the same question of, where do we go from here? We got some answers pretty quickly. Daryl Morey is out as president of basketball operations, and we're heading in somewhat of a new direction, but I guess until Josh Harris is gone as owner. And I don't love the fact that he's the owner, because he also owns the New Jersey Devils and the Washington Commanders. So clearly you can infer from that he does not care so much about the Sixers winning. He cares about it as a business entity. And if the fans continue to show up at the very minimum and line his pocketbooks, I mean, they've been making moves to duck the tax at the trade deadline time and time again, and making moves that don't foster the depth of the team and work on building organizational depth and getting these players, the young players, to develop and really build good team chemistry. They're focused more on putting big stars on the map, and that's one of the reasons why Daryl Morey is out. Josh Harris does not really care about building a good, true, deep team. And until he's gone, we're probably going to be in this same cycle. But the positivity to take from this, Joel Embiid did exorcise the Celtics demon. That is his redemption, and I will take that. He put in an incredibly gutsy performance to come back from appendicitis and his appendix being removed and playing through that. You could see after he got injured in Game 7 versus the Celtics, he could barely walk, and he still gutted out that game and finished the game with vigor as much as he possibly could. I mean, I will take that positivity from it, and I hope to God that this is not the shining moment of this era of the process, that all we could say is we beat the Celtics once and they finally beat a good team in the playoffs. I hope that's not it. But in this moment right now, I am kind of happy that we're going in a different direction. Will that look as optimistic as we go forward here in this offseason, that I don't know. But remember, Joel Embiid did get his redemption, and let's try to focus on that right now because I really wanted that for him, and I feel good that he did finally get that. Okay, so now that the Sixers and the Flyers are done, we can shift gears into full-on baseball season. The Phillies have all the attention on them. I know the Union are still playing. Not as many people follow them. They're having a very shitty season too. But still, the Phillies have most of the attention now. And they're in Pittsburgh this weekend. I will be there at least tonight, Friday night, and possibly Sunday. Really looking forward to see if I can get out there Sunday to see Paul Skeens versus Zach Wheeler. Tremendous pitching matchup. Do we feel like this team is rounding back into form? At the time I wrote these notes, they were 10-3 since the manager switch. Now I think they are 12-4, winning the series against the Boston Red Sox. Still well out of the division lead, but only out of the wild card by 4.5 games, with plenty of baseball left to play. We're still in May, guys, so let's not freak out that the playoffs are off the table just yet. Christopher Sanchez won National League Player of the Week last week. Zach Wheeler is back healthy and dealing very great. Kyle Schwarber leading the league in home runs and on an absolute tear right now in May. And we didn't have to wait for June Schwarber to show up. May Schwarber is absolutely killing it. And like I said, I'm very much looking forward to seeing them, this much improved team, in Pittsburgh this weekend. You know, the Pirates do typically have some early season success, and this year has been no exception. They do typically fall off, though, toward the end of the season, and so we'll see what happens. But I don't think the Phillies will take this team lightly. We've been seeing them come out with much stronger and more consistent efforts. Bryce Harper looks like the Bryce Harper of old again. Brandon Marsh leading the league in batting average. I mean, good Lord, where did this come from? I don't want to say that Rob Thompson was to blame, because he wasn't. I don't think that he did anything particularly wrong. It maybe just seems like his message had started to fall on deaf ears. And so flipping that switch to Don Mattingly and getting that different managerial vibe in there, seems like it has worked in the short term, and I guess we'll continue to see what happens in the long term. I am excited, guys. It's good to be excited about Phillies baseball again after a really lackluster start to this season, and we'll see what happens. I will touch on the Union real quick. They only have 2 matches remaining until the World Cup pause in June. I was hopeful to go to Philly and at least try to attend 1 or 2 of the matches, but with the price gouging that's been going on, I am not going to even attempt. It's not worth it, and I don't know how anybody is affording these ticket prices, or why, because it's just not that much fun when you spend that much money to go to a game that's ultimately 90 minutes, maybe a little bit longer, and I don't know. I don't know how people can feel justified doing the things that they have been doing to the fans with these ticket prices. But at any rate, I've gotten off track a little bit. The Union are back in last place at 1-9-3. They only have, 6 points on the season. Yikes. Injuries to starters who already weren't good have impacted the team. They just lost a very winnable matchup last night versus Orlando City FC, who's also towards the bottom of the standings. But they do have another one coming up versus the Columbus Crew, which should be a winnable matchup. We'll see what happens. I'm not feeling optimistic about it, though. And finally, the Eagles. We had the NFL schedule released this week. The big ones, of course, Thanksgiving versus the Cowboys at 4:30. The Eagles are 2-0 on Turkey Day versus the Dallas Cowboys. The full schedule was released on Thursday. I am going to see what happens in the fall. I would love to see if I can get to another road Eagles game. And there are a couple intriguing options on there. Of course, Washington is close by, and not that I would be excited to go there because the stadium is shit, but I would like to get to enemy territory. It is always fun seeing the Eagles on the road, and Washington's certainly a place where we could take over as Philadelphia fans. And if I can swing it and the schedule works out for me, I would love to get down to Nashville for the game versus the Tennessee Titans. Nashville is a city that I have not been to in quite a number of years, but there's a lot of fun things to do around there, and I would love to make that a nice weekend trip. I believe it's only about a 6-hour drive from Pittsburgh. I'm not sure how far it is from Philly, but it's a doable trip for a weekend trip, and I'm really hopeful I can make that happen. I welcome your feedback and your ideas of what your favorite road trip places would be. The Eagles are playing the Steelers this year, but they're playing in Lincoln Financial Field, so I won't get to try to see them out here this year, but they will be coming up here. I think it's 4 more years from now. So we'll look forward to that, but not this year, unfortunately. And that is going to do it for this episode of Way Outta Here. I will outro the beer that I talked about, that I mentioned at the top of the show. I chose Fellow by Forest and Main Brewing Company in Ambler, Pennsylvania. This is a light, mild beer. It's a collaboration with Human Robot, another microbrewery also in Philadelphia, PA. So the Untapped description reads, it's a 4% mild. This mild is paler than our dark mild, but has a nice deep copper hue and brings lots of malty aromatic notes to the party. We're getting whiffs of whole wheat sourdough toast, straight from the bag Maris Otter, antique furniture shopping, baked pears with caramel, and some of the fruity, earthy spice that the old EKG Fuggles hop combo shows off so well. That's a lot of words there, but I really did enjoy this. I have not had a Forest and Main beer in quite a while, but I was down here at the Carson Street Deli in Pittsburgh in the South Side and found this, and I was very pleasantly surprised to see it. I know Human Robot typically ships some stuff out this way, but yes, this was a very enjoyable, mild, drinkable beer for pretty much any condition, and as we're getting warmer and maybe going to a baseball game tonight, granted, they won't have it on tap at the stadium, but this could be one of those beers that you enjoy outside in the middle of a nice crisp beer for a summer day, or even a nice warm mid-spring day. Great work again from Forest and Main Brewing Company. I did visit that brew pub many years ago. It's kind of like a little house out there in Ambler, and a neat little place to stop in and enjoy some beers there. So if you find them near you, check it out. Forest and Main Brewing Company. The selection for today was Fellow, but a lot of their stuff, I think you will find that there's a style for just about anybody out there to enjoy from them. That'll wrap it up for this edition of the Way Outta Here podcast. I do appreciate you swinging by. If you don't already, you can subscribe to me on the social media platform of your choice on Facebook and Instagram, Way Outta Here Podcast, on Blue Sky, Way Outta Here Pod, on the blog, WayOuttaHerePodcast.blogspot.com. And if you've got any feedback for me, you can send an email to WayOuttaHerePodcast@gmail.com. Available just about wherever you get your podcasts. On Apple and Spotify, a rating would be great. On Apple, a review would be even greater. Thank you so much in advance, and until next time, be safe in whatever it is that you do.